Welcome to Poker Vlog number 37. This one's gonna be special because I am going to go through every single hand I play today, even the ones I fold. We're gonna do it in a way that's entertaining, that's not just 5 hours long. That's what the session is gonna be. It's gonna be like 5.5, 6. So that's gonna be fun just to see a more realistic view of what it is to play poker. And hopefully we don't go card dead. And yeah, that's it. Month is going pretty good. About breaking even this week, and it's Friday, so this week's not great, but last week was very good. So, you know, it's like always, things even out. So with that said, let's head in and play some poker. All right, let's head into the poker room and play. Today, we will not start with 1-3 as we usually do, since a 2-5 is already going on. So we're buying for $1,000. Head over to the table and let's jump right into the first hand. We get a very nice welcome. First hand in ace king off and under than one, but sadly we raised it up to $15 and everybody folds, but still nice. We took down the first pot of the session. Let's move on. Next hand, not that pretty though. 8 deuce off, so we just fold. And now in the big blind with another hand that we're gonna play, ace 7 off. So not the best hand. Depends on who raises, I'll defend it or not, but I don't even have to think about that since 3 players limp. So on to us, and let's see a free flop. I check. Flop is definitely above average. Ace 7 deuce. We flop top 2 in this 4-way limp pot. So sometimes I'd check raise. I think I'd do that more if it's more of a flush draw heavy board. I feel if I do it here, it just look really strong, get a lot of folds. So I want to take the line that I feel I'll get more callers and be able to get more money in the pot. So I decide to bet. I make it $10. Folds a low jack, and we see the great news. He doesn't even call. He raises us to 30. So looks pretty good. On to us. And 3 betting, I feel it just looks so crazy strong. I don't want him to start folding. Maybe he just has an ace with a good kicker that he thinks it's good. So I call. Let's see the turn. Turn is a 10. That brings in a backdoor flush draw. I check. It does slow down. I bet $60. And I didn't just want to call here. He has a little over 300 behind. I feel if I call again and he just has an ace, he very likely will just check back to river. I don't want that to happen. If I check raise, I will be able to get it all in. Jamming on the river, he'll just have like 200 behind. So let's do it. I make it $165. He goes into the tank, but sadly does end up folding, but definitely a really nice start to the session. Let's move on. Now in a small blind with 9-6 suited, folds to the button, he raises. In a small blind, I just don't really have that much of a calling range. Maybe with some pocket pairs, I defend this in a big blind, but small blind, I just think it's losing money, so I fold. Now the button with queen 10 off, so not the best, but button, low jack cutoff limp, and I definitely have a tighter range with 2 limpers, but still I think it's strong enough. I make it $25, and only the cutoff call, so heads up to a flop. Flop comes ace 10 6, so pretty good. Middle pair checks to us. I'm sure you could have aces, but I think you could have plenty of hands that we're beating, and we need some protection with our middle pair. So I see it for $20, and he folds. So we take down another one. Next, 5-3 off. So as you may expect, I fold. Now in a hijack with king jack off. Definitely nice. We're getting a good amount of hands to get started. Under than 2 and low jack limp, so I make it $25, and they both call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes 9 jack 5, so top pair king kicker, good enough to bet. So it checks to us. I see bet for $40, and they both fold. So definitely so far so good. Now I just got to get through a little bit of garbage. 7-5 off, fold. 10 deuce off, fold. 9 deuce suited. It's suited, but of course fold. And now we're under the gun with a pretty one. Ace 10 suited, good enough to raise. So I make it $15 and get a total of 5 callers. So 6 ways to a flop. Flop comes 9-5 deuce. So sure, we got a backdoor flush on 2 overcards, but 6 ways. I'm playing straight up. I check. Hijack bets $40, button and big blind call. And with that match action ahead of us, I just fold. Let's move on. I look down a 4-7 off, so of course fold. Now in a button with queen 9 off, so definitely starting off to raise in the button, but there's 3 limpers ahead of us. So with 3 players, I definitely think my range got to be stronger, and queen 9 off feels a little too wide. Suited, I'd definitely be raising, but I just fold. Next, we have 5-3 off, king deuce off, and jack 6 off, and of course we fold all of those. Now I got ace 10 off and under than 1. Definitely bottom of my range. Maybe I should just be folding, but in this moment, I do make it $15, and everybody folds. Moving on, 7 deuce suited. Nope. Jack 10 off. In late position, sure, but in early position, I'm just folding. 10-8 off. Nope. Now we got 7-5 suited in the button. I'd be raising this, but when a hijack raises, I'm just folding. Ace 6 off. Nope. Funny enough, next hand is exactly the same, ace 6 off, so that's a pretty cool coincidence. And of course, we're folding. Now we look down at the playable one, ace jack off and under than one. I make it $15, but now under than two, 3 bets, that's a 50. Low jack calls onto us, and I'm at the bottom of my range here, raising from early position, and it's an early against early 3-bet, so it's just a hand I just don't think is doing great against a 3-bet range and a caller. If I hit an ace, I'm still not happy. Unless I hit trips or 2-pair, I'm just not loving it. So suited version I'd call, but offsuit I just fold. Now the button straddle is going on. We're in the undergun with ace-9 suited, and definitely feels pretty nitty. Just when the button straddle, I do tend to go pretty tight, and it felt like not the best spot. So again, pretty tight, but I do fold. And this is one reason I'm not a huge fan of button straddles. I do think a good amount of people just get a lot tighter because they're most likely going to play out of position. So I do think it kills the action, prefer under the gun straddle, but that's what happened in this one. Let's move on. Now we got Jack 3 suited in the big blind. Cutoff makes it 15. And usually I'm just folding here, but the cutoff started saying poker bubble call. So let's show some appreciation for watching our content. I do call. Flop is ace, ace, 9. So absolutely nothing. I check. He checks back. Turn is an 8. And again, with nothing going on that board, I definitely think it'd be slow playing some aces. I check. He bets $20 and I fold. 8-5 off. Nope. 5-6 off, a little better, but of course we fold. Ace-7 off, folding. 10 jack off, maybe, but when someone raises, I fold. Ace-3 off, folding. And now we've got a hand, King 10 suited and under than 1. Straddle is going on, so I make it $30 and get low jack, small blind, and under the gun to call. So 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes 7-3-7, and yeah, so multi-way with nothing going on. I check and it checks around. Turn is a queen. Small blind bet $75, under the gun calls, and of course, king high, no good here, so I just fold. Get ready for the part of poker that's not very fun. 10-6 off, we fold. King 7 off. No, thank you. Fold. Once again, King 7 off. Fold. Gets even worse. 9 deuce off. Fold. 4-7 off. Definitely a lot of ugly cards. We fold. King deuce off. Fold. 8-5 off. King 7 off. 7-8 off. All of those we fold. Getting a lot of kings, but it's bad, ugly kickers. Now we got Queen 5 suited in the small blind, and yeah, not playing that hand, I fold. Now we got a playable hand, Queen 7 suited in the button. Straddle is going on, but when low jack makes it $25, hijack and cutoff calls, I just think this hand's multi-way is just losing money. If I hit top pair, it's probably not good with our bad kicker, so I just fold. Let's play this next one. Pocket 7s in the cutoff, under than 2, and low jack limps. Hijack makes it 20, and usually apart from the button, I'm mostly just folding or 3-betting, with the exception most of the time a pocket pairs like it is in this case, so I think flatting is fine. If people were 3-betting more after me, I definitely won't be flat calling since they'll be squeezing a lot, but in this case it wasn't really happening, so I think I'm most of the time going to be able to see a flop, so I do call, and so does the limpers. So let's see the flop. Flop comes 8 jack 8, so we don't hit, but definitely not the worst on a paired board, and especially when it checks to me, and definitely I could be behind here. People could just be pocket throwing with a jack, so multi-way when someone can have an 8, but as well I think just people could have nothing, and my 7s are good a decent amount of time here, and we for sure need protection since a turn most likely to be an overcard or that just brings in draws. So let's bet. I don't want to make it big since I do want to call by worst, that is draws and maybe smaller pocket pairs or just non-believing overcards that will float. So I make it $30 and get under than 2 and hijack to call. Turns decent at 4, so undercard to a pocket pair and doesn't bring in any draws. Now when it checks to me, I feel betting is definitely too thin. It's going to be called by better. Maybe flush draws, but I definitely think at least one of them can have a jack, so I don't want to just value own myself. I check back. River is a 9, and we see the great news when it checks again to us, and yeah, not betting here. It feels way too thin, so I'm happy to get the showdown. I check. Under than 2 flips over 10-4. We show our pocket 7s, and they are indeed good, so feels like max value betting that flop, and we take it down. Jack deuce off, fold. Jack 4 off. Yeah, we're not going to play it for the memes. We fold, and now we see a premium pocket queens and under than 1 gets better since the straddle is going on, so I make it $30 and get a total of 4 callers. Flop is decent, 9-6-4, so no overcards to our pocket pair, and there shouldn't be too many combos of 2 pairs. Maybe some of them are being pretty wide, but altogether feels pretty good. Sure, it could be behind sets, but I'm going to put out a C-bet. I make it $65 and only get the cutoff to call, so heads up to a turn. Turn is a 5. That's not the worst, but definitely interacts a decent amount with this board. Brings in a lot of gut shots or 2 pairs, just depending how wide he is. And maybe he could be slow playing sometimes with a set. So altogether, I decided to pocket roll a little bit with my pocket queen, since I do think this board is better for his calling range, since I raise from early position. So I do check, and he checks back. River is a jack, and at least maybe if he has jack 9, I think we're mostly good here, since if he has something better, he'd be betting the turn. But I don't want to bet too big, since it didn't seem like he was that strong, and an overcard did appear to the board. So I make it $100. He goes into the tank. He starts asking me if I have a flush draw, so that sounds pretty good. Maybe he's going to call. My guess is maybe flop top pair or middle pair, but sadly he does end up folding, and we take it down with the ladies. Now I've done a queen 5 off, so of course folding. Now in a big blind with 10-4 off. It's a limp pot, so we get to see a free flop, but we completely miss. So in the hijack bets, we just fold. Jack 9 suited in the small blind, definitely a pretty hand, but hijack makes it 40, cut off on button calls. I'm playing out of position in a very multi-way pot. I just don't think it's profitable, so I do fold. Ace 7 off in the button, good enough to raise, but not to call. So when someone else raises, I just fold. King 3 off, I fold. Now we get called for the promotion. So if we get the highest card, we get to spin the wheel. But sadly, when the card comes to us, we get a 5 of spades, so definitely not good enough to win. So let's move on. 8 deuce off, fold. 5 6 off, fold. King 9 off, better but not good enough. I fold. 4 queen off, nope, I fold. Now we got jack 5 suited in the big blind. 10-4 off, queen 6 off, queen 5 off. Now we're in the small blind with 6-5 off. There's 3 limpers, and this just is mostly a fold, but in the moment, a little more content. They are connected. I put in the extra $3, big blind check, so we go 5 ways to a flop. That comes king 6-4 rainbow, so middle pair, but when I cut off, it's $15. Yeah, I don't think my middle pair 5 kicker is good, so I just fold. Now we look down at a premium ace king off in the button, under than 1 limps. Hijack makes it 30, and I'm 3-betting. I make it 90, folds back to the hijack, and he calls, so heads up to a flop. Flop is beautiful. Ace king 7, we flop top 2 in his 3-bet pot. When he checks, we see bet for $50, and we see the good news when he calls. Turn is a 10 that brings in queen jack, but of course, let's keep on going for value. When he checks, I bet $175, and he now goes into the tank. And this player, he is pretty tight post flop. If he check raises, I think it's always for value that we are beat. I don't think he's check raising with anything worse than the top 2. So when he's really thinking about it, I felt like he was going to check raise, and I started to get worried, but it is not the case, since he just once again calls. River's not good. It's a 4 that brings in the flush I definitely think he could have, especially since we're blocking top 2. Good news though, he checks, and I start thinking for a good amount of time here, because I just didn't know if we're going to get called by worse. He hesitated a lot on the turn, so if he wasn't going to check raise, it just felt like maybe he had a hand like ace queen, ace jack, and when the flush comes in, I just don't think most of those hands are going to call, since me betting when the flush comes in, this looks super strong, and maybe he is just check calling with a flush himself. So it just felt like a spot that very likely I may just get called by better, and this is very player dependent. If it was more of a maniac or a very sticky player, for sure I could go for a bet on the smaller side on the river, but against this player, I decided to be safe and check back. He's hesitating, doesn't want to show his hand, so I flip over my ace king, and they are good. So we take it down. Maybe could have got more value, we'll never know. Moving on to one of the worst cards you can get. 6 deuce off. Once again, 6 deuce off. 6-4 off. And now ace 4 off under the gun. We're just folding. Now we're in the big blind with pocket 6s. Under the gun makes it $15. Under the gun 2 call. And happy calling here. Set mining. So that is what I do. Flop's not the best though. Queen 10 jacks. So when I check, it checks around. Turn is another 10. I check. When another player bets and there's a caller, I just fold my pocket 6s. Moving on to jack 5 off, fold, 3 deuce off, fold, and 10-6 off. Once again, fold. And now we look down at a real hand. Pocket jacks and under the gun 1. Under the gun limp, so I make it $20. And I get this small blind under the gun to call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop is definitely above average. 7-7 jack. We flop a full house. The second nuts. Only thing that had beaten us is 1 combo of pocket 7s. Things get interesting. So now the small blind leads out for $20, folds to us, and I consider just calling here. But this player, I do think could be doing this sometimes with a 7 because there's a flush draw on the board. And I think if I'd be raising here now, it more likely we get all the money in if he has that. And if he has a flush draw, we could still get him to call. And if I just call here and a scare card's coming to the turn, it is maybe a spot that right now I could get more money in that I may not be able to later. So I do raise it up. I make it $60, I think, as well. I could be doing this with a flush draw since leads tend to be weak. So let's do it. He thinks for a little bit and sadly ends up folding. He said that he had pocket queens. And yeah, that'd definitely be a weird way of playing queens. Who knows if that is true. But yeah, we didn't get too much value out of our flop full house. We take it down. While we get through a bunch of garbage hands I'm going to have to fold now, I just want to ask if you guys like this type of format, you leave it in a comment because it is definitely a lot more work. As you may have noticed, I haven't uploaded in a while because I'm trying to get this done. So most likely I'm going to post mostly the regular vlogs that I do, but I will try to feed these in if I see that people like it a lot. So with that, we look down at a playable hand. We got Queen Jack off in the big blind. Hijack limps, Bunting makes it $30. And usually I'd be calling here, especially against the button, but he made it $30. And this player is one of those that he'll make it bigger depending on the strength of his hand. And if I call, Hijack probably going to call and just Queen Jack off out of position for $30. This didn't feel like the most profitable spot, so I do fold. And good thing I did because Hijack limped 3 bets, Button jams, and Button ended up having pocket queens. So we saved ourselves $25 by being pretty tight. Moving on, King 8 off, we fold, 7-5 off, fold, King 3 off. Of course, we fold. We get a suited one now, but it's Queen Deuce, so not good enough. Now we look down at one that we could definitely play. Pocket 8s and under than 1. Under than makes it $15. And usually I don't flat early against early just because once I call, it's just more likely more people call and she's going to super multi pot or someone's going to 3-bet and I'm just going to be a weird spot and I'm just going to have to double flat or fold. I'm not liking any of those. This time though, I do decide to flat call my pocket 8s. One reason as well, people aren't 3-betting too much, so that is what I do. And the low jack calls as well, so we go 3 ways to a flop. Flops 4, Queen 7, so no set, but just one overcard, not the worst. Undergun bets $15, and with one player after me, not loving it, but I just felt like Undergun may just be c-betting everything, so I do decide to get a little sticky and call, and the other player folds. So we go heads up to a turn. There comes another queen. That's definitely great, since now less combos of queens that they could have. We see great news when he checks, and I feel like my pocket 8s is very likely good. Maybe he has another pocket pair that is just pocket controlling, but I think he'll have plenty of just overcards that we need protection against, so I bet $35, and he calls. River is a jack, and I think it's interesting since he leads out for $125, so definitely a really weird line bet check, and now he leads. But altogether, I mean, sure, the flush draw misses, but just did not feel like a bluff since I look decently strong myself. I got plenty of queens. Is he really trying to bluff on a paired board? I just don't think that happens often. So altogether, I believe him. Maybe he had pocket jacks or queen jack that wasn't that happy about his kicker. Not sure about it, but just it did not feel like it was a bluff. So I do fold and he takes it down. Next hand, we got a pocket pair once again, but an uglier one, pocket deuces, and under the gun, I think you just fold this, but people weren't 3-betting that much, so I do decide to raise. I make it $15, and just the button calls. Flop is not the best, King Jack 5, so yeah, I check, and he checks back. Turn is another jack, that's decent, less likely he has a jack. I check, and I bet it's $25, and yeah, I mean, I feel like he's always betting a king on the flop. And now less likely he has a jack. Definitely could be playing a jack this way, but a draw does come in on the turn. There's a flush draw and then maybe some straight draws. So maybe he turned some draw that now decided to bluff at it. So I decided to call once. River brings in 8. That brings in the flush. So not the best. So I'm just ready to fold, but there's no need to. So I check. He checks back, but he shows the bad news when he flips over ace jack. So indeed, he did turn the trips with the best kicker, and that's definitely better than deuces. So I muck, and he takes it down. Moving on to queen deuce, we fold. 6-4 off, we fold, and now we look down at the premium, and always great when we are in the button pocket. Kings, low jack limps, so I make it $20, and I get the big blind and low jack to call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop is decent, 10, 5, 4, so no ace. That's always nice when we have pocket kings. And not too many hands I should be worried about. Of course, they could have sets, 5, 4, but I don't think they should have 10, 4 or 10, 5 that often. Now the big blind leads out for $20, folds to us, and maybe if there's a flush draw on the board, I'd be more open to just flat calling since they may be doing it with 2 pair, worried about the draws. But on sets a dry board, I just think this is most likely a top pair hand, so let's get value out of it. I raised it $60 and he calls. Turn is a 9, and sure, he could definitely have 10-9, but we can't be scared of that. He has plenty of other top pairs we get value from, or maybe even let out with a straight draw. I'm going to bet I make it $100, but doesn't seem like he has nothing too strong, so he does end up folding. So we take it down with pocket kings. Moving on, jack 3 off, we fold. 8-5 off, we fold. And now we look down at another playable hand, ace jack off and a low jack. I make it $15. I get it cut off in small blind call, so 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes king 3-4, so not much going on for us. One overcard back to a straight draw. 3 ways feels a little too optimistic. Maybe if I had ace of clubs, but with this hand, I decide to check, and it checks around, so we go to a turn that comes a 5. Now small blind bets $20 and ace high 3 ways. I just fold. Now we got king 5 off, under and 1, folding, and we don't have to wait too long for good hands. We got pocket 10s and under the gun. I make it $15. I get 3 callers. Now the button 3 bets to 100 folds to us. And yeah, this is definitely a pretty nitty moment for me, since I don't think I should be folding pocket 10s from under the guns against a 3 bet. In the moment, it's the button. It's just a spot that people weren't 3 betting that often. So when they make it $100, of course, it's not that big because you're doing 3 callers. In the moment, I just felt like it was pretty strong from this player. I'm playing out of position with pocket 10s. That felt like best case scenario. I'm just flipping or way behind against bigger pocket pairs. For sure, definitely pretty nitty, but I do fold. So let's just act like that never happened. Let's move on. The king 6 off. We went to get some food and came back, so we had to buy the blinds. So I already had $5 in the middle, and I decided to check. Small blind raises to $25, and yeah, even though I have $5 already in, this is not strong enough to defend, so I fold. Ace 4 off, or folding, ace 3 off, folding, jack 10 off, and under the gun. Folding, now in the big blind with 10-7 off, fold to the blind, so we chop it, so we get our money back. 8-4 off, fold, now in the button with 7-8 off. I make it $15, and just a big blind call, so heads up to a flop. Flop comes 8 queen 5, so decent middle pair, 7 kicker, good enough to see bet, especially because a big blind could be super wide and we need protection. I make it $15, and he calls. Turn is a 4, he checks. I don't see the value in betting now. I think now definitely if I bet, most likely it's just going to get called by a better and fold with worse. So I check back. River is a 3, and now he bets $60. And definitely a very big size, basically pot. This player, he's an older guy that I play all the time with, a reg. And he's an interesting player. He's not OMC, since he does play tight, but sometimes he gets out of line, and I definitely think he's done it a good amount with me. And it's not like he has a beef. I just know he's not a big fan that I play, since I'm a winning player, and it's like he's resentful that I'm winning over there. He has this behavior towards a couple of us, and I look at him and he's just staring at me. And the fact that it's this player and he bets so big that it feels like he wants me to fold, and how he's staring at me, that I feel like he's trying to look intimidating. And usually, why would he want me to be intimidated? Well, probably because he wants me to fold. So with all that in mind, I do get sticky and call, and we see the great news when he flips over ace 5 for flop bottom pair that he turned into a bluff. So our pair of 8s is good. We take it down. We got to get through some garbage now. King 5 off, queen 3 off, 6-7 off, 8 deuce off, jack 4 off, queen 6 suited. We are in the big blind, so definitely be defending sometimes, but not when under gun raises, so we do fold. Queen 7 off, now on the button with ace 5 off. Hijack raises and there's a caller, so I just fold. I want to cut off with ace 3 suited, 2 limpers. I make it $25, and only under than 1 call. So heads up to a flop. It comes jack 3 deuce. So middle pair ace kicker definitely could be good at this amount of time, and we need some protections. When he checks, I see it for $20 and he calls. Turn is a queen, he checks, and yeah, I don't know if I need to turn my hand into a bluff. I think it may be good sometimes, and I don't know if I'm going to jack to fold since there's a flush on the board, so I decided to check back. River is a king of diamonds. He checks again now, and in the moment, I felt like my 3 is most likely not good, since calling the flop, very likely a top pair or a flush draw, and a flush comes in and he checked again, so I don't think he has that. Leaving him most of the time with a jack, so maybe we're good, no need to bluff, but I feel like most likely we were behind, and if he does have a jack on this run out, it's going to be pretty hard to defend. 2 overcards and a flush comes in. And there's straight draws too that I could just be seeing the flop. So let's bet. I think I need to make it too big, since there's so many hands apart from a flush that I want to get value from. And it's pretty scary run out. I just wouldn't bet too big. So let's go for a not that big size of a bluff. I make it $45. And we see the great news when he does fold. So not sure if we needed to bluff here, but Happy that we did. We take it down. Looked on the king 8 suited and the hijack good enough to raise, but when under than 1 makes it $25. Not calling, so I fold. Ace 5 off and the low jack. We fold. 4 deuce off. Folding. Now I looked on a pocket 16 under than 1. Under makes it $10, definitely a small size. And again, just because this game wasn't 3-betting often, I decided to flat call. And long story short, we go super multi-way. No good of a flop. So when someone bets, I just fold. So let's move on. The queen 4 suited. We fold. Ace 3 off in the big blind. It folds to us. So we chop the blinds. We get our money back. Moving on to the small blind. We got 8-4 suited. We fold. Now we look at a premium in the button. Ace king. Sadly, it folds to us. I make it $15. And this is the big blind call. So we go heads up to a flop. That is very nice. Ace 4 3 flopping top. He checks, I see bet for $15 and he calls. Turn is a 10 of clubs, so the flush does come in, but we got the king of clubs, so we got top pair and a nut flush draw. So definitely good enough to keep on going for value. He checks, I make it $35, but no more to get since he does fold. Moving on, queen 5 suited, 8-3 off, 6 deuce suited, 9-4 suited, 5-3 off. We chopped that one since it folded to us and I was in the big blind. Small blind, jack 5 off. Once again, in the button. Pretty nice that we're getting the good hands in position. We got king jack suited. Under the limps, hijack raises at $20. And usually against late position, I like the hijack. I'd be more 3-betting, especially with the limpers. If I call, very like he's going to call and we go multi-way. But in the moment, I'm not sure why. I don't remember who the player was. But I do decide to flat call. I think it's the worst being in the button. That is what I do. And so does the big blind and limper. So we go 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes deuce 9-8. So absolutely nothing. When it checks to me, so multi-way. My king high, I'm not betting. I check back. Turn is now a king. So pretty good. Top pair. It checks the hijack and he bets $40. So definitely looks pretty strong. I don't think he's bluffing often here. And yeah, I got a jack kicker. So not loving his spot, especially with 2 players that talk after me. But of course, now that we're here, I can't be folding my top pair. So I do call, and so does the big blind. So 3 ways to a river. River is a 6. I'm just really hoping he doesn't bet. If he bets with 2 callers, I just think we're not good. And we see the great news when they do check to me. And big blind calling as well, I feel like it was a little too thin, so I do check back. And we see the pretty funny news when big blind flips over king jack, so same like us, and hijack flips over king jack as well. So we all had the same hand, and we'll chop it up 3 ways. Now your 10-3 off that we fold. Now a few players left are 6-handed. We're going to hijack with queen jack off under the limb, so I make it $20, and everybody folds. So I'll take it down pre-flop, 4-5 off, I fold. 4 deuce off in the big blind folds to us, so we chop it up, get our money back. Ace 7 off, we fold. Now on the button with queen jack suited, so very pretty. I make it $15, but no action since the blind folds. We take it down pre-flop. Now on the cutoff with ace 10 off, once again we raise 15, and once again everybody folds, so not much action going on. 10-6 off, we fold. 3 deuce off, folding. Jack 3 off. King 5 off, folding them. Now on the button with queen 10 off. Hijack and cut off limp, and definitely with 2 limpers, got to be tighter. So maybe a little on the wide side, but let's do it in the button. I make it $25, and just a hijack call, so heads up to a flop. Flop comes 9 ace deuce, so we don't have anything, but we got backdoor straight draws that we could definitely be barreling on, and we're against a limper that could be pretty wide, so let's do it. When he checks, I bet $20, and he calls. Turn is a 5, doesn't give us any extra equity, so when he checks, I check back. River is another 5, and when he bets $45, I just fold. Let's move on to ace 8 off, folding, queen 7 suited, under than 1. Once again, early position a little too wide, so I fold. Now went under the gun with 6-7 suited, and yeah, this is one that I think not all the time I have to be raising since I'm in early position with a pretty small suited connector, but this time let's do it. I make it $15 and I get 3 callers. So let's see the flop. That does not come very well with king high. Not much going on for us. So multi-way, I check. It checks around, and when the turn does not help us at all and someone bets, we just fold. So let's move on to the big blind with 3 deuce off. We fold in the small blind, king queen off, so definitely a decent hand, but when low jack limps and the hijack raises $20, I just don't like flat calling the small blind. I'm more 3-bet or folding, maybe sometimes with pocket pairs. So definitely looks tight, but I just really don't mind it. I don't think it's the most profitable spot, so I do fold. 6-4 off, folding. King 10 off in the cutoff, and under than 2 raises, I fold. King 7 off, 8-4 off, Jack 6 off, 7-5 suited, queen 5 off, folding all of them. Now I got ace 7 suited. When I cut off, I make it $15, but no action since everybody folds. Now in the hijack with queen 10 suited. The low jack, a new player that literally just sat down, looks very action, says I gotta play my first hand, and makes it $15. And with all this, I definitely think my hand is good enough to play against him, but I do think I make a mistake here because if I want to play against him, it's just cut off. This hand should always just be 3-bet. I don't think flatting here is a good idea because super multi-way, it's not doing great. And if he is wide, it's just better to isolate him. But in the moment, I do decide just to call. Once again, I do think this is a mistake, but that is what I do. And so does the big blind. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop is decent, 4-7-8. So we got a flush draw. Now it checks to us. And I said, I think it's pretty wide and soaking the big blinds. So I think I bet here and take it down. And again, we have a flush draw. So we got plenty of good turn cards. I make it $25. Big blind calls. And now the low jack decides to check raise to 110. So that's not loving the spot, but with our flush draw, the second nut flush draw, I don't think I'd be folding yet. So I do call, big blind folds. So we go heads up to a turn. Turn is a deuce. Now he slows down and checks onto us, and having a flush draw ourselves is less likely he has it and has our check raising for value. I just don't think we're going to get the fold, and maybe he's just being really tricky and going for a check raise again. So I decided to see a free river and check. That comes a queen. So now if he was bluffing with some random hand, at least we're good against that. Once again, he checks and just felt like a check raise and checking twice. If he was bluffing, we're beating that. And if it was for value, it's not folding. So I decided to check back and he flips over ace 8 off. So yeah, definitely a pretty light check raise if it was for value, but works out for him since he takes it down. And yeah, a little frustrating of a hand since I'm definitely not happy that I just flat call from the hijack. So definitely could have saved some money there. Or of course, 3-bet, that maybe would have cost more money. I mean, he should be folding ace 8 off against a 3-bet, but the way he played, maybe he wouldn't have. Anyways, no need to think about that stuff. It's a waste of time. So let's just focus and move on to the next hand. I've got ace 6 suited under the gun. I make it $15 just under the gun 2 calls. So heads up to flop. There comes jack 8 6. So bottom pair, but out of position, I decide to check, and he bets but $40. So sure, got a pair, but pretty scary board, and with just bottom pair against an overbet, I decided to let it go. So let's move on. We got pocket 5s in the big blind, so definitely nice having small pocket pairs in the blind. Is easy to call and see a flop set mining, but we're not able to since under the gun makes it $25. Hijack 3 bets to 100, and definitely not flat calling with pocket 5, so I fold. Let's move on. 5 deuce off, fold. Now we're in the button with jack 8 suited. So good enough to play. When under on 2 limps, I make it $20. And I get the big blind and limper to call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop is definitely above average. Jack, king, jack. We flop, trips, 8 kicker. Things are interesting though, since big blind donk bets for $20. Under on 2 calls onto us. And yeah, we got trips, but we got one of the worst kickers. I know there's a flush draw, but when one player leads and another one calls, I just felt like very likely if we raise here, looks really strong, and we don't have the best kicker. So there is definitely a chance that we are behind. So I decided just to call. Turn is a 7. Now the big blind decides to slow down and check, but under than 2 does not. He bets $100. And this player, he's a very tight player. So definitely will look strong, but there's a couple things going on here. One, he had just lost a big pot. He got stacked and he had to rebuy. So that definitely could put him on tilt, and maybe he has a draw himself. There's a flush draw, there's straight draws. And the other thing is, the big blind donk bet, and I'll check the turn, so definitely does not look like he has a jack. And I just called the flop. So I don't think I look that strong myself. So this felt like a spot that I just feel like just calling the flop. I can't be folding the turn with trips when there's so many draws on the board. So I do call, and the big blind folds. So heads up to river. River is a 10, and I'm just really hoping he checks, but he does not. He bets $200. And I'm just hating this spot just because it's this player. He's super tight, but over and over again, I just tell myself he just rebought, and that just definitely has to do a lot in this hand. When people just lose big pots, sometimes they just lose their mind a little bit after. And again, I just call the flop, so I definitely look like I could maybe just have some draw myself, maybe a sticky king that doesn't believe he has a jack himself. So altogether, I just couldn't find a fold with my trip, so I do call. And we see the bad news when he flips over ace jack. So indeed, he has better trips with the best kicker, and he'll take this one down. So let's get through a few hands, but definitely feeling very frustrating since this whole session has just been a grind of building our stack little by little, and we're almost done. And this one just took a huge chunk of our profit. So just trying to focus, not letting it get to us. We still have a few more hands to get through. So let's move on to the next one. We're in a big blind with pocket fives, under the limps, about to mix it $25. And happy calling here, set mining, so that is what I do, and so does a limper. But when the flop comes king high and the button seepers for $20, I just fold. Moving on, king 7 off in the small blind, folds to us, so we chop. Now we got pocket fives. I make it $15, but no actions, just everybody folds. And we got to get through a bunch of garbage. King 7 off, king 6 off, 10-6 off. I'll just keep on showing you guys the hands, but as you see, pretty frustrating since now I just go super card dead, and this is a decent amount of time. So yeah, definitely one of those sessions that are pretty frustrating. We just grind and grind, just no big pots, just little ones that you build your profit little by little, and just towards the end you lose a big one. That wasn't a huge cooler. Maybe I could have found a fold. I feel definitely if he hadn't lost a huge spot right before, maybe I could have found it. But yeah, trips against trips, hard to fold when the draws miss. And at least we're still up some. We didn't lose all of our profit. And we get a nice news when our table is called for the promotion. So the way this works, they're going to give everybody a card. Whoever gets the highest wins the promotion. That today is mystery chip. So let's see. And we get an ace of diamonds. So that will be good. Now we just got to wait for the floor to come so we can pick out the chip. So while waiting, let's go through the last hands. 5-3 off. We fold, jack 10 off, we fold. So that is it for playing. Hope you enjoyed just seeing every single hand to get a better view of how playing a live session is. It is a lot of folding. Thankfully, we had a decent amount of hands. Anyways, let's rack up and head over, see how we did. But right when we're getting up, the floor does come. So let's pull out the mystery chip. We get anything from $25 to $500. Let's see. We get $75, so I can't complain. That's above average since most of the chips are 25 and 50. So, hey, we ended on a good note with a promotion. Now let's head out, cash out, and see how we did. All right, hope that was entertaining, a little different than the usual ones. I'm not looking forward to the editing. Let's see how much work. Seems like a good amount more work. But anyways, if you're watching this, that's all done. And let's go into the session. So it was pretty smooth session, no huge pots. Of course, until the ending that we went card dead and just got that one nasty spot that we flopped trips, and the other guy had a better trips. And that was just pretty unlucky because not just that we flopped trips, it was because that player had just been stacked the previous hand. He's very tight. He's a weird tight, not like All Man Coffee. He has these weird moments. And I do think I'd be able to find a fold against him, but he had just been stacked. He looked tilted, the flush draw missed. So altogether, I don't know. I wasn't able to find a fold, and he did have it. And yeah, but not the ending we were looking for since we were up 700. We were up 600, 700 almost the whole session. And then with that and a few hands before that, we had the flush draw, and the guy check raised us with a super light since he had top pair shitty kicker. Yeah, we got hit towards the end, but at least, you know, that was fun that we hit the promotion and we got $75. So let's count numbers. We were up $225 playing and $75 the promotion. So that was kind of perfect. We made exactly a profit of $300 in about 6 hours. So, you know, 50 an hour. I can't complain. Bittersweet, of course, since we grinded most of it to be up a good chunk more and lost it almost all about the last hour and just card dead. But yeah, that is it. I'm going to head home, have the weekend now to relax and recover, and we'll be back at it next week. If you enjoyed this format, doesn't mean I'm going to do it again. Depends on how much work it was, but I'll try. If it gets a lot of good feedback, I'll try to put time into making these more often, because I could see how they could be more valuable, and not that many people do it this way. And I'm not surprised, because usually I'm doing other stuff at the same time. I edit, I film, I talk. I wasn't able to do almost anything apart from filming, because I have to be way more focused, and constantly filming and writing down notes is definitely a good amount of work, but it was fun. And let's end it there. Thank you guys for watching. If, as usual, you could subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Always happy to talk about hands, and I'll see you guys next week.